Follow along with me while I draw this charcoal portrait of my dog and daughter. I did this as an example for one of my classes to show how easy it is to use a grid to map things out. I think using a grid is one of the best things that you can do in art if you want stuff to look correct and you want things to be in proportion. No matter how many times you've drawn something or for how long you've been an artist, proportion is always a challenge, and it's always something you have to pay close attention to. For this one, I printed out an 8x10 photo, and I did a 1x1 inch grid on my photo, and then I doubled it, and I did a 16x20 for my final drawing. So the drawing is 16x20. I used all kinds of charcoal pencils. I used white. I guess they're called charcoal pencils, but they're really not charcoal. I used an eraser to draw quite a bit. The dog's fur was really a challenge, so I had to really pay attention to what it looked like instead of what I thought it looked like. I kept looking at the photo. I even printed out a lighter version of the dog because she has this face that's really dark, and I wanted to make sure I could see all of the details and all of the shine. And I just took my time. I started from the right and worked to the left because I'm left-handed. That's a tip that I would tell anybody that's working with charcoal. Whatever hand you use, start on the opposite side and work toward that hand. And try not to skip all over. I think finishing one part of the drawing is more successful for me personally than kind of skipping all over. I do lay it all out though. I draw the details really, really detailed and well with a pencil or a light charcoal pencil before I start drawing. But then I definitely try to stick with one area and finish that area before I move on to the next area. It also gives me an idea of how dark and light I want things to be because I'm not skipping all around the page. I kind of get an idea of where my darkest darks and my lightest lights and where my values are going to be. The face was really challenging because this is someone I know really well. I wanted to make sure to get the face right, and it took me a lot of work. I actually ended up drawing it and then erasing parts of it and then drawing it again. And I think the secret to this is just to be really light with your charcoal until you're absolutely sure of the placement, and just getting that face right is so important. And then shadows on a face, if you shade it too much, especially on a young person, it's going to end up looking older. So even though you see like the smile lines or the folds in the face from smiling or making an expression, you want to keep those a little bit lighter when you're doing that in charcoal, just because it tends to get really dramatic really fast. In terms of hair, I like to think of hair. A lot of people just kind of glaze over hair and draw it really fast. I like to take my time on hair and think of it as a series of shapes that are kind of going all different directions. And then I shade those shapes, and then I go back in with a white pencil and I add a little bit of detail. And you'll see at the very end, I even did a tiny bit of detail on the dog's nose and eyes with a white gel pen, just because I couldn't get the really light white that I wanted. And that was super helpful. But here I am just laying the face out and taking my time and starting really light. You can always add, but it's harder to take away. So I just added little by little and wanted to make sure that I got the eye placement and everything right. And I just remembered, and what you need to do if you're doing this is just remember to refer to your photo a lot. Like look at your photo so much more than you think you need to. Don't forget that you need to use your reference photo constantly. You need to look at it probably more than you look at your drawing. The dog's little arm or paw over her face was kind of funny. I didn't want her to look like she had a hairy face, but I really wanted to get that emotion of the cuddling that they have. So when I go back in with the dog's paw, I'm just gonna take a white pencil and just add those little hairs that are kind of all over the place. And I'm just laying it out a little bit more. Another thing you want to think about when you're drawing a large scale drawing is the background. A lot of people forget that the background is just as important as the subject. You want to make the background make the subject stand out. So they were on a couch, so I wanted to kind of show that there was a dark background on one side, and then it kind of varies a little bit. I did keep it kind of loose. I didn't go into details with the background. I'm not very patient when it comes to that kind of stuff, so I kind of have to force myself to keep working and to finish every single square of the picture. And you really want to think about every single part of your picture. Erase your grid lines. That's something I forgot to mention earlier in the video. Once you're done drawing from a grid, you want to erase your grid lines and just be really careful with it as you're going. I put a piece of paper under my hand because I'm a big smudger, and I want to make sure that it stays nice and clean when I'm drawing. For her arm, I just kept it really simple because it was kind of hard to tell that it was her arm at first, but I think at the end it turns out fine. At the very end, I decided that I didn't exactly love the face, so I fixed up the face a little bit and made her nose a little bit closer to her mouth. And here's me taking off the tape, and here's the finished product. Hope you enjoyed. Go make your own charcoal drawing. Like and subscribe. I know that's cheesy, but I have to say it.